Okay, Dan, I got 7 o'clock.
Right.
So, let me close this window here. So Dan Petroni is going to speak this morning. You can see his credentials up there. He's taken over the directorship of research, what we used to call Asthma Inc. for a long time, now renamed Seattle Allergy and Asthma Research. And I must say, in my estimation, doing a brilliant job and really bringing in some really novel and creative studies, which is, a really nice thing, seeing new biologics and really new science. So, Dan, we got about 30 people. I'm sure we'll have more to come. So I'll go ahead and give you the microphone.
Thanks, Len. So every year, Len asks me to kind of give an update of kind of the studies that we've done and like to kind of go through what we have done and then kind of give some updates along the way. I know Clint, I usually do a lot of stuff on food, but Clint Dunn did a really good job a couple weeks ago. And so I won't rehash too much from what he talked about. So no related disclosures to anything I'm going to talk about. Word of the day today is trial for people who are getting this for CME. So this is, as Len mentioned, that we've kind of adjusted our name from Asthma Inc. to Seattle Allergy Research Institute, mainly because we haven't really done very much asthma as of late, because that's become kind of like the not hot area of topic, and it was for like 30 plus years, and now it's moved on to other areas, particularly food. And so really it's my kind of mission and goal is to continue bringing these cutting edge trials to the Puget Sound, as well as to enhance our partnership with the different entities in the region. And so this is our website. So anybody in the community, if you want to know what's happening right then and now, if anything is being recruited, just go to this website and you can see what our active studies are. Just go to our studies and you'll see. I also have a research database. So along with this website, there's for anybody who wants to participate in research, so patients or their families. I now have well over 1,200 subjects in this, and this is how we recruit our patients. So they'll go in, put in their information and their relevant allergy history, depending on what they answer. And this is what I'll do. So if I need 12 and above who have peanut allergy, this is where I go to first before I move on to anywhere. So it's all, and I'll send off a blast email to all these people, and whoever answers first. So there's no selection bias, as whoever, unless they've self-designated themselves in this way. Our collaborations, we have CFAC. So CFAC is basically the coalescence of Northwest Asthma and Allergy, Seattle, Virginia Mason, and Benaroya, as well as UW Allergy, kind of coming together. We typically have yearly meetings where we kind of go over the state of the art for food allergy. We skipped last year mainly because of the pandemic. I'm not sure if we're going to have it this year as well, but we shall see. The other thing that we've kind of clarified and solidified is our association with FAIR. So we are part, along with Benaroya, Clinical Research Center of Distinction. And so this is a collaboration between us and Benaroya kind of coming together to kind of share clinical trials and bench research and everything. And then we just have a newest collaborator that's joined us, and this is so that we can get into the area of gastrointestinal diseases. And Dr. Bernstein, who's over at Puget Sound Gastroenterology, now Gastro Health, I think that's what it's called. He's an adult GI doctor who has an interest in EOE, and we've kind of come together to start doing these trials and kind of access a new area that we hadn't explored before. And so we actually have 2 research trials that I'll talk about a little bit later. So a little bit about food allergies. As belabored, it's a major problem. Upwards of 8% of children in the United States have food allergies. This is a significant increase over the last 20, 30 years. Also seen in the Europeans and Australians. The top allergens: milk, eggs, peanut, tree nuts, wheat, soy, fish, and shellfish. and as well as milk and egg allergy becoming more severe, as well as taking longer to resolve with a high cost daily. So just going to the Pacific Northwest data, 2006, this is the first year that Northwest Asthma and Allergy went into EMR. There was 4,200 office visits related to food allergy, which was about 33% of all office visits. Last time I checked was 2017. There was 12,000 office visits for food allergies, with nearly 60% of all office visits related to food. So it's become a predominant, and most of the allergists coming out, especially the well-trained ones like here at UW, are very much food allergy doctors as well. Just to show you kind of like the relative increases of all food allergy versus peanut allergy versus tree nut allergy in terms of total patient visits between 2006 and 2017. So here are the various treatments under investigations. So we'll talk about each one in turn. So oral immunotherapy plus biologic modifiers, epicutaneous immunotherapy, as well as some other things beyond the gene therapy that I'll talk about in a little bit that actually will be coming to trials. So beyond OIT. So here's some updates. So Immune, we've been involved with since the pivotal phase 3 trials, as well as all the safety trials as well, and those have all completed. The one that's still ongoing and that's active in the area is Poseidon, which is ARCO-5, and this is the toddler peanut OIT group, and that's being recruited over at Benaroya currently right now. And then right now there is a extended maintenance program for all of these graduated subjects that is going to stop very soon. I just got the protocol amendment that this will going to end. So as probably all of you know, AR101, or AKA now it's called Palforzia, amazing name, was the first food immunotherapy approved by the FDA in early 2020. Then pandemic happened, and so delayed implementation, but it's on the market now. I've started a small pilot to explore how it can be done and integrated into practice, and part of this, I kind of wanted to tell everybody about kind of my experience with the product and kind of my approach to OIT, which has kind of become like a hot topic. And so I've been doing this since for the last 5 years or so with trials, and just want to show you how I approach this. Okay, so the first thing about it is picking the good candidates. All right, so great candidates is really a flexible time schedule with the families. They need to have the time and availability. This is a frequent visit to the doctor every 2 weeks for 5 to 7 months, depending on tolerance of the updosing. That can last anywhere between an hour to hour and a half each visit. All right, so not everybody is able to do this. For the patient, they need to be easygoing, a flexible time schedule. They really have to buy into this. They're doing this. The really young ones, you know, you can get away with it, but the school-age kids and as well as the adolescents, they really need to want to do this. This can't be just mom wants them, because yes, they can force them the first couple of times, but they're gonna have to do this every day for years to come. So they have to be compliant. Otherwise, there's a whole lot of work for absolutely no gain. As well as restriction to activity, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. All right, the poor candidates. Patients with extreme anxiety related to their allergy, just sheer terror when it comes to their food allergies. This does not get better with OIT. It oftentimes amplifies with OIT. And I've had to send some children over to therapists and had to stop because it was just too much for them. We can also extrapolate this to the parents too, if they're too hyper anxious about all this process as well, but it's really the patients that are the ones that you have to really look out for. And if they're unable to follow the dosing regimen and restrictions thereof. So the OIT restrictions are these. No exercise or hot water exposure within an hour prior to the dose and 3 hours post OIT. This is for the entire duration while they're on treatment. So they could be on maintenance therapy for 2 years, and they still have to follow this because a reaction still can occur if they exercise immediately after they're taking their dose. All right. So think of it kind of similar to people who have food-related exercise-induced anaphylaxis. They're fine as long as they don't exercise within that kind of 3 hour window, and that's very similar to what we've seen. So as a result, OIT is typically not compatible with high-level athletic participation. So the kids who are varsity club level sports, who are practicing they have weightlifting in the morning, they have exercise till late at nights, they work out 6-7 days a week. There's just no time for them. You also don't want to dose right immediately before bedtime. Oftentimes that's the only time where they can have downtime. That is also not a good idea, because you don't want to have somebody take a potential allergenic thing and just fall asleep. So you do want to wait a little bit. So there's this kind of period of time where you have to like observe them for a little bit, and they can't be have any of this activity associated with this. So when you explain this to a lot of, especially teenagers who are doing this type of participation, it's just kind of like, it's like a no-go, and they just kind of like leave. And so that's kind of been my experience with a lot of the kind of the teenager set. And so, and also exercise has been the #1 cause of severe OIT anaphylaxis related stuff. Absolutely, by far. The only time where we've had to give 2 EPIs out in the field related to OIT, and any sort of ER visits have all been related to exercise within that kind of time window. And the second is hot water exposure. So bathing or showering, hot tubbing, that type of thing is a #2. So taking your dose, hopping in the shower, taking your dose, having a bath, both those things can propagate and worsen allergic response. And this is at any time. It's not just during buildup. It can be during on maintenance. It's at any time throughout this entire process. So this is something that has to be followed and has to be followed closely. So how I approach OIT, and I think confirming the allergy is probably the most important thing. As I told you, this is a long duration of therapy that needs to be conducted, 5-7 months of Q2 week visits. And so I will only do this on people who have confirmed history of peanut allergies. So either by history or by challenge. And so if you're not willing, if there is no history, you got to challenge. That's my opinion. All right. And you don't have to be very strict about it. You don't have to have a certain X criteria, but with a very liberal starting criteria, but this is how I approach it. So I'll do a low dose threshold challenge. And I start off at 1 milligram and work my way up to a total of 600 milligrams. If they pass, then the Palforzia therapy or any low dose OIT therapy really makes no sense, because they've already exceeded the maintenance therapy of like 300 milligrams on that first day. So why put somebody through this kind of slow build-up process? And I will bring them back and do an equivalency challenge of a real food. So like a peanut M&M, a single peanut, or whatever kind of what they want to do. And then they start that on a daily basis. If they do react, then schedule your initial dose escalation for a formal OIT. So confirming is important. I think it's early days for insurance approval, but I think that they're going to start formalizing these and solidifying these requirements and having a confirmation. And based on like all guidelines currently, confirmation means challenge or clear clinical history of it. So you need to have at least something to kind of root yourself in terms of approval. Also gives you a sense of like what your day is going to be like when you do your initial dose escalation. So if somebody reacts at 3 milligrams, then you're going to be much more wary on your first day comparatively to somebody who reacts at 100 milligrams. It's a different kind of level of sensitivity that you're picking up for their food allergies. And so the initial build-up day, this is for most OITs. So this is specifically for Palforzia. The first dose, every 30 minutes, you start off at a 0.5 milligram, milligram and a half, 3 milligrams, 6 milligrams, with a total of 12 milligrams cumulative that day. And then they are discharged with starting initial dose of 3 milligrams the next day. This is the one day in clinic that you can expect the most frequent reactions. Most of the time it's pretty mild stuff, and it's mostly tummy stuff, kind of abdominal pain, but it can go all the way to epinephrine and anaphylaxis. But also if you kind of know what you're doing and know from your challenge at least, or your kind of history, you kind of predict who kind of will fall into this kind of category. So you can be more wary that day. Updosing visits. So this is the questions that I ask for every single updose, all right, whether it's clinical or research. So assessment of their current health. So fever, illness in the past few days. If they're sick or actively sick, that decreases their anaphylaxis threshold. And so you can have problems there. So I will not updose anybody who has any sort of active symptoms. Date of the last OIT dose. So you need to know when the last time they took it, all right? So make sure it's not the day of updose. Some people forget about that, especially if they take it in the morning. So if they take it at 8 o'clock every single morning and they come in their updose at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you're not gonna updose that day because they already took their 12 milligram dose that day. And then compliance checks. Make sure that make sure they haven't had an excessive number of missed doses so that you can proceed with the next dose. And then the reactions to OIT. So any immediate stuff, so high swelling anaphylaxis, any sort of immediate abdominal pain, all the kind of IG immediate stuff. But also, and more importantly, I think to ask, because you're gonna see this as well, are the delayed reactions. So acid reflux, dysphagia, food regurgitation, early satiety, all the kind of like EOE type symptoms, which I'll talk about in a moment. These are all very important questions to ask because it can happen at any time. It can happen during updosing, it can happen during maintenance, it can happen a year after starting OIT at any time. So follow-up is extraordinarily important for these patients, and particularly on maintenance, to make sure that we're not causing overt harm on them, okay? Last, but certainly not least, is quality of life. So how I ask this in a roundabout way is, especially if somebody's hating what they're doing, is how long it takes them to eat their OIT dose. If they say they swallow it down in like less than a minute, fabulous. If it takes an hour to slowly choke it down, then we have to have a discussion about like what's the food vehicle that they're using, what are they mixing it in, like maybe there's some other thoughts or other things that we can do. Some kids are sweet kids, some kids are savory kids, depending on their flavor profile. And there's all sorts of tips and tricks. My favorite thing is like if you're not a sweet kid, so almost everything is pudding or yogurt or applesauce. Hummus if they're not sesame allergic, it's a great option because you can't taste the peanut and it kind of masks extremely well. And then reactions to updosing during the updosing visits. I've never seen an anaphylaxis in the years I've been doing this, but it mainly tends to be abdominal pain. That's really kind of the extent of it, and easily take care of some antacids and H2 blockers. EOE and OIT is what I kind of referenced. This is from a paper that Johnson Spergel and myself did a couple years ago, looking at kind of like overall the different studies that have been done, how often there has been an associated discontinuation related to an EOE or EOE-like disease process. And it's about 5.6% of patients overall going to it. And that's a breakdown of the different clinical trials, so egg, milk, and peanut. As I mentioned, this can happen at any time in their OIT treatment, so you really have to ask these questions, and it's something that I will, every single time that they come in, we will talk about this to see if this is, and you pick it up. And then the nice thing about this is that the EOE that's related to OIT will resolve on its own by removing it from their diet. So you can solve the problem right there. But if you just let it keep persisting, then you could have long-term side effects that you don't want. This is some of the commercial packaging. This is one of the things that when I first started this, I was used to the research packaging, which was honestly enormous. They were huge. They took up nearly an entire fridge space with the size of everything. But for the commercial, it's much smaller, and it's very, very slick how they set it up. And so you get these dosing kits in the office, which is very convenient, that has a bunch of the set doses for your updosing in the office. And how we've done it is that we have the specialty pharmacy send us the kit for the upcoming. They get their updosed, tolerates it well, and then we give them their dosing kit for the next 2 weeks, and they come in for their next one. So far, that's worked out okay. So some other things. So going beyond.
Dan, can I ask you a question before you move on?
Of course.
It seems to me the combination of what you just went through as far as the rigor to make this product work, plus the pandemic, must have made the rollout of this product incredibly difficult and
Yeah.
I would think almost a failure. Do you have any idea how this is going for the company?
Well, I know they got bought out, so they got bought out by Nestle. So I'm sure that that wasn't on the cards if this went well. So and some of the other kind of signs it actually leads into this next slide is the egg OIT, which they kind of because of the pandemic got derailed really quickly and then was shut down rather abruptly. And so the egg immunotherapy, which was their next big thing, AR201 it was called, got killed. So I think things did not go very well for sure, and they're just trying to roll out things now. It is a useful product in the sense that, especially for the ones that are sensitive, that it's very easy to utilize for us. So there's minimal like impact on like measuring out things like for staff, which you would have to do in like a kind of OIT if you were doing your own and measure out stuff. This is like you break open a packet and you dump it out, and there you go. You got your dose for 3 milligrams.
Do you know how many patients in the Seattle area are on this product?
Just the small pilot, so just the one that we have going on right now. Everybody else is clinical trial related.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the egg OIT one from Ammune company got stopped, and we had, I think, the most patients in the study. It was well tolerated. People liked it. Hopefully it comes back. And then another rather exciting company, which is a Bay Area startup called Alladapt, is one of the first ones to actually produce a multi-food therapy that has a top 9 food allergens in it. And it's a collaboration between Dr. Nadeau over at Stanford and this biopharmaceutical. And it's starting enrollment right now. We had our very first patient start their screen. We had our first 2 patients start their screening in the study just a week or 2 ago, and it's actively recruiting right now. So you don't have to have more than 1 food allergy. You could just have 1, and so it's open to enrollment right now. So ages 4 to 55 years of age, and we're still looking for subjects. Okay. Epicutaneous. So let's talk about this. So the patch. So these are how we've been involved with the patch studies. So we are involved with the phase 2 trial and then the phase 3 trial, both the pivotal and the safety, as well as the rollover study. So the people study is the rollover study that is ongoing right now. So they're looking for. So our patients are going into their 4th and 5th year of being on patch therapy. And more recently, they had the Miles. Does it check? Let's see. It's a good question about. There's somebody asked a question about would Palforza be willing to put together a peanut challenge kit for providers to use for high risk abortion? That would be a great thing to provide. They provided this for the study, but I think that would be a wonderful use. I actually have utilized their kit for kind of like some challenges like this because it's all kind of set there. But there's certainly a good question to ask for Ammune. I'm not with them, so good question though. Miles, the phase 2 milk patch, that one had just completed just recently. Hopefully there was some problems with that trial, mainly because of the dosing wasn't the phase 2 dosing wasn't great, so they still have to pick the right dose. And so they're going back to the, they're going to have to repeat the trial again in some way, some fashion. All right. So, oops, here we go. So just to talk about a little bit about the people study, and this is published paper in JACI. So the people study was the rollover from PEPITES, where everybody who was on placebo got randomized to open label, or the people who were on treatment were continued for the additional 3 years. And so this is the relative cumulative reactive dose between the 3 years while they were on the therapy. So baseline, the mean and the median reactivity was 223. At month 12 was 444, and at month 36 was 944. So a steady increase the longer the subjects were on the therapy. Now, some of the issues that was pointed out in the paper was that there were some individuals that actually that did well after year 12, after 12 months, but then decreased their thresholds when it came to month 36. And because of this, and because of a lot of other problems, the BLA that was sent to the FDA was denied by the FDA in August of 2020. And their primary concern was related to the stickiness of the patch itself, that they thought it contributed to the efficacy, which is something that a lot of us in the trial were pointing out to the company for years, that this stuff did not stick very well. If you look, I'm just going back a second, this is the actual size of the patch, and so this is a good representation of what it looks like. There's a ring that has adhesion to it, but the center part is what has the peanut in it, and there is no adhesion in this area right here. So really all that's sticking to it is this like very small area that causes this. So a little ruffle of a little scratch, a little rub against, little rub, and oftentimes the stuff will kind of rub off and no longer work. And so they have to kind of go back and redesign their patch size and modification. The newest kind of release from the FDA has said that the modification of the patch does not require a new phase 3 study. So it's good news for the company. So they don't have to go back all the way to the drawing board. They just have to hopefully redesign something that works better. Currently, the toddler peanut study, which is called Epitope, has completed enrollment in late 2020, and many of our subjects have rolled over to the extension of EPOPEX, and the data from that is still pending. OIT plus biologics. All right, so Zolaire and food allergy, this has been long to study for several years. Zolaire alone, as well as in combination with immunotherapy. COFAR is doing the study, and I know they've been having a hard time recruiting for this study through the pandemic, so it's been slow to enroll. The novel thing about this trial is looking at just Zolaire alone as a potential therapy for, and then subsequently Zolaire plus oral immunotherapy. So whether Zolaire alone could be something that potentially could be utilized, and other companies are actually looking at this kind of as well. This seems to be the next kind of hot area where they're just giving people once a month or once every 2 weeks or whatever the frequency it is of the biologic, to see if they can non-discriminately improve all of their food allergies. So peanut or like 1 or 2 or 3 immunotherapy is not hard, but what happens if you have 8 real ones? How can you do that? Like OIT would take forever to be able to do that. And so just having a once a month injection and increasing your threshold by a factor of 5, 10, 20, 30, I think a lot of people would kind of favor that over having to go through an arduous OIT regimen. So we'll see if that works or not, but that's something that's being explored actively right now. One of the other trials that we're conducting, and it's going to be ending in the next 3 to 6 months, is a combination of AR101 with and without dupilumab, which is a phase 2 trial. This is for 6 to 17-year-olds. The data is pending for it. There's a previous study to this with Regeneron, with dupilumab and grass immunotherapy. And one of the interesting things that was found in that trial was that the IgE bump that you get with every single other immunotherapy was inhibited by dupilumab. So you did not see that initial bump and then decrease of IgE. You just saw IgE just steadily go down while IgG4 steadily rose up. I don't know because everything is blinded for this one, but I'm curious to see if that's the case for this one. Dupilumab has also been actively investigated for EOE, and that's something I'll talk about in a minute. So we'll see if that would be helpful to people while they're on AR101 to see if that ameliorates GI type symptoms. So I'd be very curious how that data pans out. All right, so that was the OIT stuff with some biologics or just OIT straight and EPIT. There's some other trials that are more novel techniques. There's a company called Allergy that they are actively investigating aluminum hydroxide absorbed peanut extract, which decreases allergenicity, but keeps, the reactivity, but keeps the same allergenicity of the product. And we did the phase 1B with children, with adolescents, and turned out okay. Results are still pending on that one, and then the whether or not they're going to pursue this in the future. I heard some rumblings, but I don't know yet if they're going to move on to phase 2. This trial there was no challenges. There was nothing else associated with it. It was just proving safety, and none of our kids reacted badly and were on active. The Estella peanut vaccine. So this is something that's we've been conducting here in Seattle. The LAMP vaccine, which is this manufactured vaccine that has the peanut ARA-H2, the ARA-H's genes built into it, along with a kind of enhanced binding to the dendritic cells. And we were part of the 1B study, which was adults only, and we've just finished the 1B adolescent trial as well, and the results are still pending on that one. And then the next one that's very exciting coming up is the nanoparticle peanut immunotherapy. So this is a coated nanoparticle that has encapsulated peanut protein inside of it. And this is soon to start phase 1. Here in Seattle, we did a lot of the early preclinical work with samples of blood, as well as some of our one of our fellows, Clint Dunn, worked on this at the Benaroya lab as well, and did some of the help with the preclinical work. So this should get going sometime later this year, and it's going to be for adults. The whole theory behind it is that this matrix gets uptaked by the dendritic cells, which are taken to the nodes, and this causes apoptosis of those cells, which leads to more interferon production and thereby less of the Th2 phenotype with the presence of the peanut, with the hope that it could help delete and induce T regulatory type function. We'll see if it pans out, but it's an exciting novel technique. They're not looking for desensitization, rather they're looking for as a curative type method. So that's what they're kind of gunning for. They did also some work with celiac disease that had some very interesting results as well, with a similar technology. Eosinophilic esophagitis, as hopefully everybody is aware, is especially in kids, is food related disease process, with the most frequent trigger being milk as the trigger, followed by eggs and wheat being the others. And causing this invasion of eosinophils into the esophageal tract. Up until recently, this was an area of research that we could not get into without our current collaborator, who's basically our scoper. So one of the first trials that we engaged in is dupilumab and the EOE. And so this was in adults, a phase 2 trial published in Gastroenterology about a year ago. And looking at the peak, this is looking at 2 different charts, placebo versus dupilumab treatment, and this is the peak eosinophil count. And you can see baseline with placebo, there was no significant decrease in eosinophil counts, and then dupilumab, there was a significant decrease in eosinophil count in these subjects. There was also, which data I haven't shared. Here is the kind of alternative way to look at it. So this is 12 weeks into their therapy. This was dupilumab given weekly. Right now at this point. So there was 300 milligrams Q weekly, and then we saw at week 12 the significant decrease in eosinophil count, along with, I'm not showing the data, but the improvement of symptoms as well. So this trial is going to be, it's all the way down to 12, and it's we've completed our enrollment for right now, but they might reopen it back up. There's a big screening window to get it going, but we had our very first patient randomized about a week ago, so very excited about that.
Dan, with that trial, is there no biopsy data about?
Oh yeah, there's endoscopy, biopsy data. There is everything. So
it's not analyzed yet.
Oh no, this for the current one that's ongoing. It's ongoing. So the phase 3 trial is ongoing right now. That was a phase 2. So yes, those were biopsy eosinophil counts from the.
What you showed us was biopsy. I thought it was peripheral blood.
No, this is in the tissue. In the tissue itself, yeah, per high power field. So this is tissue eosinophils, so per high power field.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, and the other trial that we're working with is anti-cyclic 8. So if those of you aren't aware of it, sialic acid immunoglobulin like lectin or cyclic is unique. Cyclic 8 specifically is uniquely expressed on eosinophils, mast cells, and basophils. Its activation when it's on eosinophils will destroy them, and if it binds to a mast cell, it would inhibit their activation. So there's a lot of potential for this molecule. They did a phase 2 trial. This is published in the New England Journal, looking at EGID, so gastroenteritis duodenitis, with their anti-cyclic 8. So this is AK002, and it was given IV and it's given monthly, and so the decrease in symptom score we can see for placebo was not significant, but the decrease in symptoms was significant in the patients with who got active therapy. So a very, very promising looking therapy. Just as a reminder, there really is no great therapy for eosinophilic gastritis, gastroenteritis, or duodenitis really at this point in time, apart from maybe steroids, which are really not a great idea anyways. So the AK002 is kind of the first of its type to target this area. And so they've expanded out, because this is relatively few, to now enrolling into EOE. So Alicos is a phase 2, phase 3 trial that we are participating in. They have to be 12 years or older, and EOE is the primary, but they can also have it in their stomach and duodenum as well. So they have EGID, it's okay along with EOE. With the Regeneron trial, it was only people with EOE. So if they had it anywhere else, they weren't interested in those patients. So they had to have just solitary EOE disease. Had to have confirmed biopsy that was, or confirmed that was negative in the rest of the GI tract. And so that, like I said, is enrolling now. And so if you have any subjects who fit this kind of criteria or who would be interested, our website and as well as my email is open to you guys to talk about these patients, because they're it's a special type who would be willing to go through all of this. And just to kind of go over the kind of the other stuff that we have actively ongoing right now. We have through AstraZeneca EGPA trial that's a head-to-head between benralizumab versus mepolizumab, and this is confirmed EGPA but never started on an anti-IL-5, which is especially it's kind of hard to find. These most allergists who take care of this are pretty on the ball and get people started on the standard of care. So if you have anybody who's brand new to it, is active recruiting, they're still looking for people. It's been ongoing for almost a year and a half. I think in the entire United States, there's been 4 subjects, and we have one of them. So if you have anybody out there who has EGPA and it's not on biologic naive, this is the treatment trial. Please let us know. And it's like I said, a head-to-head, so everybody gets therapy. So whether it's benralizumab or mepolizumab, everybody gets therapy. Uh, Back into our first foray back into asthma. It's called the Nimble Trial, and this is kind of my first asthma study. I've kind of shied away from most asthma trials, mainly because I don't think placebo-controlled asthma trials with biologics is ethical. With so many biologics that are available, they should be a head-to-head. It shouldn't be off of something, and so this is the first one that I've seen that is actually that. So it's patients with moderate to severe asthma who are on mepolizumab or benralizumab. And then they are randomized either to continue their active therapy or a new long-acting anti-IL-5. So everybody is on therapy. So either you're on what you've been doing well on versus something new. And so this is, I think, it's a twice a year or a couple times a year, a dosing of anti-IL-5, a novel one. So first foray back into the asthma spectrum. And our latest one that's about to finish enrollment because of the season's approaching is a Birch Allergy trial. And this is through Regeneron, and it's an anti-BEV-TV1 monoclonal antibody cocktail, and that's given as a subcutaneous injection ×1, and to see if that improves their seasonal Birch allergy symptoms coming up. And I think we're going to have our one, and we're going to have our few start up this week with their injections. So because it feels like Birch season is about to start. All right, and some things that are on the horizon. We're going to hopefully be a site for the Moderna COVID vaccine for pediatrics, so less than 12 years of age. So we have still have yet to hear back, but hopefully we get selected. And then Takeda has a new one that's going to be up and coming soon, hopefully. And this is for people with lab normal HAE, so the first treatment trial of its type. So this is not for 1-2, but for people who are convincing type, lab normal type or type 3. And this is lanadelumab versus placebo, 18 plus. They get Firazyr, they get a lot of stuff, so they just have to be lanadelumab naive. So if you got them samples or they're on some sort of compassionate use thing, they can't be included. But if they are naive to all this stuff, then they can be included. Probably getting started sometime Q3, Q4 sometime of this year. As I mentioned, this is we're now sorry, and we have a whole lot of other people that are involved with this, not just myself. Other sub-investigators, my co-director Lisa Winteroth, and then Sarah Segezzo has been very helpful. Len sees patients with us, Mary Lasley, Dr. Ashley Tatum, and Frank Ferran all have helped support as sub-investigators. Our staff includes Lisa Miller and a bunch of other great medical coordinators and research assistants that have helped out innumerably, and all the study participants that volunteer their time and their effort and literally their blood to us to kind of help explore the food allergy in all the different areas, and treatment trials are also very much thanked as well. And that's all I got to share. Do I have questions in the audience?
It's quite a brilliant group of studies you're doing there, Dan. I can remember, I'm sure Frank remembers as well, when this organization was studying Claritin, something of that intellectual quality. So other questions out there? The cyclic 8 molecule seems to me extremely promising.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that
Well
one.
beyond just GI diseases.
Yeah, I think chronic urticaria, I think it could be a huge thing. I think for food allergy, it could be a huge thing. I think for a lot of things, it could be a game changer. So the safety profile is the only thing that has to be kind of worked out, and the IV is the only difficult part about it. So we'll see when we get our first couple, and hopefully they'll change it to a sub-Q form in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I mean, if you can shut down eosinophil and basophil and mast cell activation, it'll put us out of business.
Yes. Well, somebody has to prescribe them, right?
What's that?
Somebody has to prescribe them, right?
That's right. All right, well, we got a whole group of people out there. Somebody must have a good question. As I see you go through Palvorzia, and it strikes me, I mean, that's one strategy, but if basic immunologists could figure out how to create tolerance with T cell regulation, it'd be a much more effective approach. It's remarkably hard to make people tolerant, even when we do it with conventional AIT immunotherapy. We're not anywhere near perfect with it.
No, and honestly, OIT is kind of a brute force way of doing this. It's I think most people are not candidates for it. I would say probably about 40% of peanut allergics would be candidates. Either they have too many other food allergies, or they just don't have the right temperament for it, or they just don't have the time. This is a very time-intensive process, and if you have a parent that's at home that can do this and bring the kid in this frequently, that's wonderful, but that's not most Americans. And so it's really a process to do this. So, and it desensitizes. There's no treatment. It's not curative in any way. Nobody's to this point has ever cured anything. And so because of that, you have to break it. So do I have to like throw away my EpiPen? Do I have to like, can I do all that? So you write me a letter that I'm not allergic? And the answer is no, you are allergic. This is not a cure-all. So the hope is that those other ways that where they're actually targeting the immune system are going to be ways to like kind of like actually start to treat therapy and actually treat and get true tolerance is what everybody wants. That's what like the goal with a lot of people would be. I want to be able to eat what I want whenever I want, right? And not have to worry about it.
The other hurdle, even beyond that, beyond the medical or immunologic challenge, will probably be insurance. I mean, they're going to push back, I would think, in a big way for paying whatever, the time intensive. This is not going to be cheap by any means.
No, certainly not cheap. And I think at the very beginning stages, a lot of insurance companies will say yes. But then they're going to figure things out, and then they'll say no, and you have to kind of justify it why you want to do this. So I think challenging is important to do this, to kind of confirm it, so you have a good establishment of like this is why I'm doing this. This is how sensitive they are. This is their likelihood of like reactivity, cross-contamination issues, all sorts of things that you can kind of justify. Otherwise, they have a positive skin prick test is, I don't think, enough justification to put somebody on like 7 months of therapy, 7 months of updosing, then years of therapy afterwards.
And kind of related to Len's point, is anyone looking at microbiome alterations in addition to all of these other methodologies to maybe get permanent tolerance?
There's definitely exploratory studies that are looking at that, some of the alternative stuff. There's Chinese medications. There's all sorts of things that are happening. It's just something that we've never been approached by, except for one company that actually very recently that we might be doing in infants as a food allergy prevention is a probiotic type approach to that you start off like in the first couple of months of life. Actually kind of interesting in it. I think there would be a lot of people kind of down for it to kind of as a prevention, primary prevention type of thing. But yeah, there's no anything that's close to commercial that it's not there yet when it comes to this stuff. Yeah. And I had a question from the group. I think it's from, are there any up and coming TSLP studies for EOE out there? I don't know for tezolizumab. I don't know what AZ is doing with Tezi.
John Corin, who's to my knowledge sort of the expert, John is talking later in our teaching series. So save that question for him.
Dan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Vinod.
Hey, Dan, this has been an awesome job, with what you're doing out there with the research, with the compilation of different studies. I think it's a really good resource, certainly in the community. And I think as allergists in the community, I think we look to you, and from the research perspective for all these for these patients who are interested in desensitization, or at least want to explore that. So I think you're doing an excellent job. So really good to hear all the studies that you're doing. I did have a question. I know with Palforzia you just have one patient. With peanut or other tree nut, outside of Palforzia, do you have anybody you're doing OITs with or without biologics? If I might have missed that, you might have said that. But
I have a lot of it is kind of more informal. So I will challenge people out, and so to get them to a point where they can do effectively a cashew or a pecan or things like that. I haven't put anybody on like a kind of formal like low dose type of thing, except for I had a few patients that I had in a small pilot where I used Zolaire plus like some of these nuts as well. So I've done a couple of patients in that way. The thing about when you use Zolaire is that you don't have to mess around with the 1 milligrams, 10 milligram stuff. You can actually jump forward a lot higher than that. And a lot of them can tolerate from the get a nut equivalent. So it becomes much easier to do it when you use a biologic, but it's just cost prohibitive and too expensive to do so. So there's another question from the group. When a patient's stable on Palforzia maintenance, do you ever change their dose to 1 peanut versus continuing the Palforzia product long term? Absolutely. So we do that quite frequently where we convert the two. Now, that being said, all right, if they're very sensitive and you get them going on Palforzia, and as soon as they hit maintenance, that you switch over to a peanut equivalent, it doesn't work out as great, mainly because there's extreme variability when it comes to the content of a peanut or peanut product. So Bob Wood showed some pretty great data about this, where there could be a factor of 10 to 100 times difference in the content of RH2 in some peanut products. And so what we tend to do is keep people on maintenance for at least a couple of months, three to 4 months, and then a lot of patients will like naturally want to stop. And so in fact, none of our pivotal trial folks who went through ARCO 3, ARCO 4 are in maintenance for Palforzia. They all switch over to a peanut equivalent. So, and I typically do something to like a single peanut or a quarter of Reese's peanut butter cup or a handful of Reese's Pieces, and that works out pretty well for them. But you just you don't want to stop right away. So you want to kind of build up their threshold tolerance. So just a couple of months on maintenance, oftentimes these kiddos will have like tolerance of 1.5 grams to 2 grams. So you do have some safety margin beyond the 300 milligrams of 5 to 10 times the amount. But yeah, you can definitely switch over. In fact, they're about to do the study where they're looking at just that. So we have a bunch of kids who were in the safety Ramsey study that have been on maintenance now for like at least a year, at least 2 or 3 years at this point. And they're stopping them. So they're cutting off their AR101 supply. And we now have to diverge. So whatever they want to do. So whether they want to stop or they want to go to a peanut equivalent or just go Palforzia for insurance purposes, we're about to kick that off probably in the next like couple of weeks with at least like 6 to 10 patients to do this.
Hey Dan, can you hear me?
Before Palforzia was
Glenn, somebody was trying to ask me a question. I think it was maybe.
Sorry, this is Trevor. Dan, can you
go
hear me?
ahead.
Yeah, so on that topic of switching over to a food product from Palforzia,
Yeah.
do you a couple of things? So speaking to the reps, they obviously don't tell you that you can do that. They tell you that you can never change to a food source, and that you have to stay on the product lifelong, which is pretty significant given it's $900 a month. So some families that do this are looking at the cost value of that, and at some point they do want to transition. When you've transitioned, is that an open transition at home, or do you bring them in?
I challenge them in the office. Okay. So I bring them in the office and I challenge the equivalent. So I put them on my kind of real food, kind of the equivalent OIT type of thing. And I give them basic rules. And the basic rules are these, is that if you want to change your food type, you have to be done in the office. Otherwise, it's this. So if you're on Reese's Pieces, you stay on Reese's Pieces. If you're on a peanut, you stay on a peanut. If you're on a quarter of Reese's peanut butter cup, that's what you stay on. And if you want to switch it up, just let me know. We'll come in and challenge you to it and make sure that's tolerated okay. And so I'll do basically a structured challenge in the office.
Great, that's good advice.
Hi, Dan, it's Paul McBride. Before Len chimes in, initially when Palforzia came on the market, there were a couple studies that said more people ended up in the ER on Palforzia than they did with just avoidance.
Yeah.
That data continued to look as bad as it did, or is that better?
Well, it's certainly the case. So more like when it comes to OIT, really any type of OIT, reactions are part of the game. And so you are giving somebody something that actively a thing that they're allergic to. And so if they deviate, like they have, it's almost always some event. So it's almost always exercise. It's almost always some sort of like there's a reason for it. And it's almost always at home or somewhere else. Or though in my experience, it's camp. So camp is like the bane of my existence for these OIT kids because I've had like, I think at least a half a dozen reactions at camp, and they're usually rural, somewhere in the middle of nowhere where this occurs. So it's definitely something to pay attention to, and they have to adjust their life. This is not easy. So that's why picking the right patient and compliance and all this stuff, it's very important. You just can't give this willy-nilly to like people who are haphazard about this, because it's just going to cause problems. So picking the right patient and thinking what's the best therapy, because the avoidance is fine, it's good, it's just it's standard of care. So it's just whether or not that risk and reward is worth it for that family, and if you think that they can safely do this, that's the most important thing. Len?
Well, I was just going to ask, there were certainly a lot of people around the country and in our region doing unstandardized peanut desensitization is in much larger numbers, I think, than this product is actually doing. Is that still the case to your knowledge?
Probably, I would imagine so. I don't know about regionally, but definitely nationally, there's some big groups that are doing this, and it's definitely not standard of care for sure. I don't know when like a product like this comes on the market, so this starts to alert insurance companies to this, whether there's going to be some pushback or push-pull, or this was all private pay. I don't know, but it's definitely something that's evolving, and this is our first generation of product of something, and which is great. It's not the be all to end all, that's for sure. But I think there will be new things that come on the market. You just have to be like, if you're not willing to challenge somebody, I don't think you should be doing OIT. So if you're not comfortable with giving people, like inducing anaphylaxis, causing home anaphylaxis, because you probably will, you will be getting calls, then this is not the therapy for you. So there's some of us who are very comfortable with that, and that's maybe who should send your patients who want to do OIT towards, is the kind of the people who are food based, or you get trained up and you learn, and I'm always happy to help out anybody who wants to pick my brain or kind of get some thoughts about how to approach this. I'm happy to share kind of like what I do, my notes and things that I kind of go forward. I have a kind of a handout sheet that's I'm working on to give to patients when they check in, to just kind of streamline the process.
Unless there are any other questions, Dan, thank you. I've watched the evolution of clinical research in this area for a long time, and you're doing a brilliant job, and you're a fantastic regional resource for everybody who's listening and beyond. So thanks again.
Very welcome. All right. I guess that tolls are 8. Okay.
That was unintentional, but so long, everyone.
Okay. Bye now. Have a good morning.